MJ, I want to change, but I just don't have the willpower. How many times have you heard that?
Oh, that's pretty consistent in my line of work.
Yeah.
I know I should, but I just can't seem to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that all the time. I want to, but I just can't. I don't have the willpower. I just don't have what it takes, kind of. And I think it's interesting because it is almost an accurate view of willpower, and I would, but it's not quite there. And in fact, it's very self-limiting. And I hope that we can kind of talk about a more balanced and realistic view of mental tenacity and willpower as we both see it, and as some of like the evidence suggests in this episode. And let's kind of think about this. Imagine you have just a simple gas tank, right? And you wake up and you don't know what you're going to wear for the day, and so you kind of get out of bed, and after your normal morning activities, you're looking, what do I wear? I don't know about this. It's Tuesday, so I guess I'm wearing yellow maybe. And you kind of go through your outfits, and then you don't like that, and you pick something else. Well, your gas tank went down a little bit. Okay, then you go downstairs and you decide, what am I going to have for breakfast? I could have oatmeal, I could have eggs, or I could heat up leftovers that I had last night. And your gas tank goes down a little bit. And then you go to work, and work is a little crazy, and it's not very predictable, and it's kind of all over the place, and your gas tank goes down substantially. Then you go to lunch, and what is it that I get for lunch? I don't know. I might order from this place or that place, and your gas tank goes down a little bit. And now, before you know it, you get home, and you have nothing left in our mental capacity / tenacity gas tank, and you actually don't have the ability to then exert decisions at all. And you have no ability to change at all. You literally have run out of willpower at this point. And I think that's actually a pretty fair view in one way to view willpower, is it is a renewable yet depleting resource. Would you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely would agree. And that gas tank, I think we would kind of call that cognitive load, right? So how many decisions are you making per day? And one of the things that we know is it's not just how many decisions you're making per day, but it's the speed at which you're making those decisions, right? So in your example, you went through and you were like, all right, maybe I'm wearing the yellow one, maybe I'm wearing the red one. Actually, I'm going to go get changed, right? So you went from basically getting up and saying, I'm going to put these clothes on, one decision, to I might wear this, I might wear that. That's 2, 3, 4 decisions. And then going back as far as going back and getting changed, that's another decision. So now before you've left your bedroom, you're in 6, right? So if we can, it doesn't really, it's not, you can't count them out, but now we study some of the great leaders, people that that are big time CEOs that are doing all these things, and they're talking about, I don't make these decisions. I don't need to. I wear the same thing every day. And I eat the same thing for breakfast every day, and it frees them up to make really great decisions later on in the day. Right? We all have the same 24 hours, they say, and I think that people get so caught up in these little tiny decisions because they don't realize, and I think this is what we want to really help people understand, they don't realize that is eventually going to deplete them when it comes time to be disciplined, use willpower, make a really tough decision. And I think if people knew that more, better understood it, they would stop wasting time on some of these easy, silly, superficial ones.
Right. Yeah, they said the president, all presidents don't pick a wardrobe; they just wear the same exact thing every single day. And yeah, you're right. It's a great example as to reducing these kind of decisions that are required to make, such as the power of the habit. And when you recognize that's how the brain works, is that it has a pretty big store, but yet is dwindled by everything that we encounter, you kind of recognize, wow, I mean, change can be almost systematically implemented in a way in which makes it easier for us to acquire new habits, right? And that's the power of the habit is that it's automated, right? One of the things that's interesting to me is it actually takes more energy for me to not go to jujitsu at this point because I'm just so automated. Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays, Sundays, like for me to do something different at this point is like kind of weird, right? And that kind of odd feeling is exactly the draining of my mental resource because it would be so different. My body and brain don't necessarily know how to act. And it's the downfall of a diet too. Imagine this, like you're eating one way and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to change everything that I do in regards to eating, and I'm going to add gym, and I'm going to like eat completely different. And I'm going to do everything differently. And you can see how that over time is really hard to maintain because you're putting all your decision-making power to the food that you're now trying to eat versus everything else that is also equally important to you. So yeah, I think it's interesting. And I wanted to highlight the Israeli judge study, which is kind of infamous right now, but it is interesting. You've heard about this one, yes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this one is interesting. So basically they did this, like, it was a pretty big study on the judges in Israel, I guess. And what they found is that when they were deciding on court cases after a meal break or early in the day, they were much more likely to grant parole than if they didn't have a meal break or were kind of like towards the end of the workday. They were much more likely to deny parole. And one of the thoughts about this is that their decision-making power, their mental capacity was lower around the later halves of the day. And so they didn't have confidence and trust or the energy to think about disrupting the status quo, essentially. So to grant parole would require, well, is this person a good fit for this? Will this mean anything for me in the future? It's a lot of decision-making kind of involved. And it's a little bit of responsibility because you would grant this person parole. So when you're not feeling it, your energy resources are kind of depleted. Your cognitive load is already too high. It's very easy to say, well, denied.
Yeah. And what that essentially points out is they made the safer choice.
Right.
Right. So when you can take this same exact, study that they did with kind of like life-changing events and go to just use your own logical, like think back to a day where you just been overwhelmed all day. You had decision after decision after decision. And at the end of the day, what do you really end up doing? You make the safer choice, and that safer choice is, let's say the choice is to like go out and hang out with your friends or do something, or just kind of go home. Right. Well, the safer choice, the easier one for your brain to say is like, well, I know I'm just going to go, I can just go home and just veg out. Right. And you're maybe not physically tired, right? You haven't worked your body all day, but you're mentally exhausted. How many times has someone come home from work and be like, oh my God, I'm mentally exhausted. Right. Well, they're making the safer choice. So if you want to change, if you want to enact change, you need extra willpower. You need more cognitive function. You need less decisions throughout the day in order to make better, less safe choices, right? Choices that will require you to eventually make more choices. And I think that's an incredible example. And man, wouldn't those people like to, go back and be like, I'd like to go for lunch, like, can I go right after lunch, please? Like,
right. Yeah. Like, here is some donuts and please eat this before making your decision.
It was actually 65% more likely to get granted parole.
Yeah. After
lunch.
Yeah.
That's what
incredible.
A wild thing.
Yeah. It's safer. It's more familiar. It requires less thought, really. And I think that's the big thing. Even your example about going out, to stay at home, you could be doing terrible things at home, maybe a alcoholic, maybe just chronic drug use or whatever, that that's the case. But guess what? Requires a lot less thought to do that than it does to go out and venture into the unknown. And we tend to favor that, like expending less mental energy.
So we'll take it one step further, because I think we haven't made the leap to willpower yet, right? And you sent me the study. It was cookies versus radishes, right? So what they did is they took a large group of people, and they put them in a room that smelled like cookies, right? Which we've all been in that room. We're going to eat the cookies, and they gave half the people the ability to eat the cookies, and the other people said, you can't eat any of the cookies. You can have some radishes if you want, which I think is hilarious, by the way. Choosing radishes for this is just absolutely hilarious for me, right? It's like they really wanted to make sure you had to like really think about it. Yeah. So the people that were able to, so what they did is they did this, you enter this room for a period of time, and we don't have to get into the semantics, but essentially at the end, they gave everybody in the room an unpassable test, right? A project or an objective that they weren't going to be successful with. And they timed the amount of time that it took them to essentially, that they kept trying for, right? So like, they don't know it's unpassable. They just keep trying. And what they figured out was that the people that were able to eat the cookies kept trying for much longer than the people that were not able to eat the cookies. And what they proved was physiologically, they had been using this willpower, this thoughts around, man, I want to eat cookie, I can't eat cookie, I should eat cookie, can't eat cookie, the entire time. Well, the other one wasn't. So when they started the test, they weren't starting in an even playing field.
Right.
And so what they've proven is that willpower and decision-making go together, just like we're talked about, and cognitive load go together. And you only have so much of it before you eventually crack or break or whatever term you want to use.
Yeah. I think the coolest part about those kinds of studies, and there's a number of ones, whether it's like resisting certain foods or resisting certain kind of temptations, right? The biggest part, the biggest takeaway is that your willpower doesn't reside in one dimension, say. And so the willpower that you use to go to work and do a good job there is the same exact one that is used on diet, is the same exact one that is used for movement, is the same exact resource that's pulled during your interpersonal relationships. It's all one thing. And so that's why it's great to take automate the places that you feel you can, so that you have a greater resource pool to pull from in general.
Right. Yeah. So they talk about this if then, right? Like, how many scenarios in your life do you know are if then? Like, if it's 6 a.m., I'm at the gym. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to go, oh, well, what am I going to do this morning? I'm going to know it's at 6 a.m. I'm at the gym, right? If it's this, then it's this. And those if-then scenarios, as long as you can continue, you'll build these habits around them, you'll be able to take some of that cognitive function and cognitive load and store it and use it for later on. So you have more willpower. You can make better decisions later on in the day. And what I think is really interesting is most of us use our cognitive function serving others. And we're doing it at work. We're doing it for a company. We're doing it because this is how we get paid. Then we get home, and how many times have you seen somebody be like, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm just going to go sit on the couch and veg out, right? Like, I'm guilty of it, very guilty of it. I do it all consistently and need to be better. But when I really want to be living my life and communicating with my spouse, and maybe some of us are playing with our kids, and like, wouldn't you rather have the cognitive function and the ability to make not just the safe decision, but good, solid, fun, sound decisions later on in the day? Of course you would. So what can you do then, right? You started by saying, I want to make a change. What can you do? What are some changes that you can make, right? Before we kind of go through all the tools that you can do, like, how about the role that environment plays in your willpower, discipline, cognitive function, right? Like, if you're constantly putting yourself in an environment where you constantly have to be bombarded and think about your clothing, your wardrobe, your food choices, your exercise choices, your should I do this? Should I go here? Is that something that we can change just by changing our environment?
Well, I'll share this. As you might know, I work with many people who are very mentally dysregulated. So I have a really great view, and I'm so thankful that I get to work with the population that I do, because I can see, what doesn't work for people, right? And what does too, because I work with plenty of people who are like super high achievers and just kind of want to like dial things in too. But I'll tell you, when someone's environment is chaotic, they have no chance. They have no chance at a healthy lifestyle. I have folks who just all the areas of their life, the like 12 dimensions that they have control over in their life, their careers, their career, finances, interpersonal, eating, movement, whatever, all of those kinds of dimensions. If those are chaotic, you're kind of screwed. And so they've actually done studies on that too, and they know that when those 12 areas are dysfunctional, you are going to feel depressed. You are going to feel anxious. It's pretty much goes hand in hand with that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it really is important to see what you can work on the environment front. Can you control those environmental factors, and can you just control like literally what's in front of you? If you wake up and your wardrobe's a disaster and you didn't do your laundry and, clothes are unorganized, I mean, that's another decision to make. It's interesting. And I know that, whatever controversial kind of figure he is, he's still a profound thinker. Jordan Peterson talks about like the clean your room kind of thing. And, like the more people I work with who are like as dysregulated and as like chaotic as they are, that is like literally the best advice you could give someone. And it sounds so simple, so stupid, right? I don't even have a job right. I don't even have my finances in order. Everything is chaos. And this guy wants me to clean my room. Like, yeah, because that's literally where it starts. It's fascinating how these like little tiny things, of course, everything happens in a little way for most people. Those little tiny things do make a massive, massive difference. And so if your room is in order, if your house is in order, if things are kind of, controlled in some way, then you're more likely to feel like every other barrier you encounter through the day is manageable.
Absolutely. Micro habits, right? That's what they talk about in the habit of making your bed, the habit of keeping your room clean, the habit of keeping your environment in order, right? It doesn't, clean and in order are two different things, right? Just in some semblance of order. But just like we know, when you're on the opposite side of that, it doesn't make any sense. Right? It's the same thing as like when your mindset is, we could sit here and talk about how mindset is everything, but when your mindset is wrong or flipped, it feels like that's so stupid. That's so silly. I would never, that doesn't make any difference, right? But there are tools that you can use, right? In order to work through this type of stuff. And one of them is stillness. And just a little stillness throughout your day. If you're someone like me and you and probably most people that listen to this, like you're up, the alarm goes off, mine goes off 5 minutes late because I get up at the last second possible and I start my day and I'm up, I'm in the bathroom, I'm doing my thing and I'm downstairs and I'm out of the house and my clients start at 5:30 a.m. and then, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I go to train and then I do all my things and then I'm home at 9. And then instead of stillness, I take out my phone and I scroll and I watch TV and then I go to bed. No stillness.
No.
A little micro habit you could try to build in is setting your calendar. Hey, every day at 1 p.m., I get 5 minutes of stillness. No phone, no people, no nothing. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to. And just start that micro habit in order to, well, for 5 minutes, you've reduced your cognitive load. You've given yourself a little extra boost in what you got left by the time you get home. You know, that's just one tiny little movement, just like cleaning your room, that you can add to your world. Now, I say that, but the problem is with change, and we started this, we want to make change. We always want to make big change. And in order to make big change, you have to give something up. Even in that 5 minutes I just talked about, you have to give up a 5 minutes of whatever else you were doing, 5 minutes to work on a project, 5 minutes to clean your room, 5 minutes of communicating with your coworker. Right. Are you willing to give that up? Don't know.
Or do you even in the same vein, do you have the capacity to give towards that change? You know, if you say, well, that 5 minute stillness sounds like a good idea. And you know what? I just listened to the episode on, you know, nutrition and fat, and that's a good idea to add more fat. And, you know, also there was one on fasting too, and that's a kind of a good idea. And also movement. I haven't been doing that, so that's a good idea. You're not able to. And then there is some humility in accepting that you just don't have the capacity, as great and special as you are, MJ.
Thank you.
You don't have the capacity to give to all these different things. And so you need to pick one thing and stick with that. You need to get that automated, because as soon as you can offload that new stillness habit into you know, your memory, essentially, into your normal kind of habitual operations, it's going to drain you. It's going to take a little bit of mental capacity to give towards that, and that you already don't have enough, right? You already get home tired and you know, wishing you had more. So, you know, you do have to take it one step at a time. And then I think that's the most insidious thought when it comes to change. It's like, wow, that's just a small thing. That's not going to make a difference. Yeah, well, you can't do more than that. So, I mean, you either accept that you're a human and you operate by human laws, or, you know, you try to do everything, you make some big grand change for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then you go right back into where you were. So what do you want? True change, or, you know, like the superficial kind of like ruse of change?
Yeah, we got the first of the year coming up, right?
Exactly.
I mean, let's face it, there's thousands of people in our neighborhoods that are going to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get healthy. This is my year. So instead of saying, you know, what does that look like? What can I do? What's one thing I can do? They're going to go, I have this friend that's healthy. You know what they do? They go to the gym every morning at 5:30. So then they're like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the gym every morning at 5:30. No shot. No. None. And they know it deep down. And the people that, you know, we know it inherently, but hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get 2 hours of movement in this week.
Right.
That's huge for a lot of people.
It's a lot. It feels manageable, but it's not. You always say the mind we live with a mind that's willing to deceive us, and that's the biggest deception of all, that we have more to give than we actually do in some ways.
Right. Because what do you have to give up when you say, all right, I'm going to get up at 5:30 in the morning every morning, I'm going to go work out? For some of you, maybe just veg out time, right? You're already up. You're just like, I could use my time differently. For a lot of us, it's sleep. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, what does that really mean? That means I got to go to bed earlier. What does that really mean? Then whatever my activity was that I'm doing at night, which most of us tend to like, right? Mm-hmm. That's what keeps us awake. I'm going to give that up. So am I really going to give up an activity that I like in order to go do a new activity that I just think is going to make me better in the future? I wish the answer was yes. That would be nice. It'd be great. Right. Yeah, I'm not going to eat ice cream because I'm just going to have the Brussels sprouts because I know that they're better for me. Okay, good one.
Yeah,
right?
It's not going to work.
It just doesn't work. So what can you do? Right? These little micro habits, you can do them. Right. You can find accountability partners, right? Someone that you love and trust and is willing to motivate you and help you. Right? These little micro habits, you can make these type of decisions. You can make easier decisions throughout the day. So you're willing to make less safe decisions at night. Right? Maybe you say, you know, at 5:30 in the morning, it just doesn't work for me. But after work, yeah, that's the time I can do that. Okay, cool. Well, are you willing to give up the time with your family? Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. Yes. Again, great. So then what do you have to do to make sure you're successful? Well, most of us can't go home first and then leave again. Doesn't work. So you got to pack your bag. When do you have to do that? Well, you got to do it in the morning before you go to work. Okay, micro habit. Pack my bag for the gym the night before. Simple.
Right.
Don't worry about the rest. Automated. Hey, I got my bag. This is what I got to do, right? I mean, these are all just little examples, and I'm using the fitness industry, and you're using the nutrition industry because that's what we're in. But we have so many different examples of how to make real change, as long as you understand that willpower is a real physiological response. Micro habits are way more impactful than making big, grandiose statements. Accountability partners help. And it can be done, but real change, this is something you say all the time, real change takes time.
Totally.
Right? You wake up May 1st and you're still going to the gym a couple days a week. Good work, right? Now, hey, maybe I want to add a third day. Right? Now, maybe I want to make sure that we do that 5 minutes a day. Telling me that you're going to do all 5 days and you're going to add in the stillness, and then you're going to make sure you eat a healthy dinner every night. Like, I hear it all the time. People tell me all the time that's what they're going to do.
All right. Yeah, you have to build routines. A lot of people are very apprehensive of routines. They don't want the days to feel stagnant or whatever it is. I want every day to feel very special. But routines are truly what creates a good, secure mental health and allows you to change, right? If, as boring as it might be for you to get up in the morning and wear roughly the same things and have the same breakfast and go about the same kind of morning routine and, each day feeling like it molds together in some sense, well, that's also what creates the platform for you to exert a little bit more capacity to the things that you want to do. And so ideally, most days feel roughly the same, but you have some sort of aim. You say, well, I do kind of want to change how I eat. And well, maybe I just start with a healthy snack in the afternoon, right? And when I talk about this all the time, we want to eat a healthy meal every single meal, yet we can't even make a healthy snack. How does that make any sense? Or you want to be able to buckle down for the 4 hours of deep work in the morning that everyone talks about, but you can't do 5 minutes of meditation, right? You have to start there. And once a healthy snack feels like no problem, great. Then a healthy meal, healthy dinner should feel no problem. Once 5 minutes of meditation feels like no problem, great. Maybe 30 minutes of deep work feels like no problem, right? And so you have to get good at those things, and you have to build a routine, and understanding that while willpower is a resource, it is something that we kind of have more to give a lot of the ways in a lot of ways too. They say that I don't know if this is actually true. It's like a saying or something. I don't know who. If you know who made this, then let me know. But they say we only give about 40% of our mental tenacity in one day. So we do have more to give. Right. But in the same sense, you want to build up and preserve the amount of mental tenacity that you have generally. Right. And so that occurs through all the things we talk about. That's the beautiful thing. Once you start getting things in order and you start building a routine, you start eating well and moving well, your capacity gets so much bigger. And how great is that? So yeah, so I think just starting slow. Yeah, like you said, little micro habits. If you're already doing something, if you're already brushing your teeth, it's very easy to slip something else in there too. Like, I brush my teeth now. You kind of said when. If I'm done brushing my teeth, then I go journal. Right? Great. Because it's already anchored to something. You already have, like James Clear, kind of atomic habits kind of style, talks about habit stacking, and that's such a great way to think about it because you already have anchored. You already have teeth brushing anchored, hopefully. You already have breakfast anchored. You already have waking up anchored, whereas everything else might then feel astray and you're kind of lost in the desert from 3 to 9 p.m. doing different things every day. It's not a great place to find what direction to go, You have no compass.
Completely agree. And it's important for anybody listening too. And I love that you use the toothbrushing thing. Like, meet yourself where you're at. Right. The first step is awareness. It always is, no matter what we're talking about. Right. If you're not aware, maybe someone will be nice enough to bring you up to speed. Right. But first step's awareness. Second, really meet yourself where you're at. Like, one of the problems we have, go back to the going to the gym thing, is like, we pretend, right, that we're so much further along than we are, because we don't want our ego to jump up and be like, hey, listen, you're really not there. Like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to run 4 days every week. Well, really? Because you can't even pick out the treadmill, right? You got to figure out which one that is. So, like, meet yourself where you're at. Maybe even take a good inventory of what habits you do have. Right? What are the ones you like? I have the habit of having dinner with my wife every night. Okay, I like that one. That's one I want to build on. I want to stack on. So when I'm done with dinner, then I X, right? And make it a good one. Make it something you like, right? Not dessert. Well, that's right. Then I do this, right? Or right before dinner, I make sure that I go upstairs and I put away all my clothes and I get myself squared away for the next day, because I know that after dinner, I'm just kind of mush, right? I just want to sit on the couch and hang out and just watch some TV. Okay, right? So if you're not honest with yourself about that, then you got no shot of making those little micro changes.
Yeah.
So maybe a good example would be meet yourself where you're at.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I mean, humility is really important. And I think one of the best things for someone who practices sports is that they are faced with their own ego every single time, right? And that might be the biggest utility there, is the fact that you can kind of come to an understanding of who you actually are. I always say that, like, that quote that I really love is you can't be greater than who you are in this moment, but you can have experiences, kind of like in light of who you want to become. And that, to me, sums it up. I mean, you could have experiences of being a runner, of going on the treadmill and doing your thing, but you're not a runner right this second. And it's okay to be humble about that. You can have an experience akin to a runner. You can go and do 10 minutes on the treadmill. That's your wheelhouse, but you're not going to your point, run 4 or 5 times a week. It's just not a thing. So aim to have the experiences and just be humble.
Yeah. And we get humbled every day.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And, well, I think we've done a pretty good job of explaining this willpower. I know for when you asked me or told me, hey, let's talk about it a little bit, I knew I had no idea it had anything to do with cognitive load. Even when I talked this morning a little bit about it with a friend of mine, she said, well, some people just have more of it. I said, well, maybe that's true, right? Maybe it is. Maybe they got better at saving their cognitive load. Maybe they have practiced it more. Maybe they have more micro habits. Maybe they, all these things we just talked about, maybe they do have a little bit more of it. But it's not a ethereal thing. It's not just like they were born with it type thing. It's a practiced type thing, and it's working through these tools that we just told you. I would ask anybody here to go and talk to somebody that has willpower, and just ask them, what are the things that you do on a daily basis that might be different than me? See what they say.
Money on the fact that they probably have many things in order and many things automated, right? If you're seeing the results of, you're not seeing their willpower, you're seeing the results of their automation in some sense. And, just as a quick note too, on the belief part about, your friend said, well, some people have more than Carol Dweck, who wrote the book Mindset and does a lot of great research on this exact topic in growth mindset. She's the gal. She also did one on the belief of willpower is something that's like static and you either have it or you don't, versus it's kind of renewable. You have a lot to give, but also you have to manage it. They've done the studies on those types of people who believe in one camp or the other. And would you believe the people who believe willpower is this kind of like you either have it or you don't, do very poorly on willpower based exams and tests, right? And so it's one part belief, it's one part like being humble, it's one part being actionable about your routine, and just kind of like coalescing them all together.
I love it. Yeah, well said. So if you're looking for willpower, watch this again, write some notes, and start stacking those habits, automating the things that you don't have to worry about. And I guess we'll catch you on the next one. If you really like this and you're interested in any topics that we haven't talked about or anything you want to hear more of, please just let us know.